Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Scaling Creative Podcast. Thanks for being here as always. Pablo, it's good to have you back here.
Good to be back.
Not only from Ireland, but it's been like a couple weeks since you've been on the podcast.
I know. I've been replaced.
Just busy working.
I'm just kidding. I'm here.
I expect you to come back with an accent.
I actually kind of in weird some ways. Like I already had one a little bit, but like it's been heightened now. So little things like I say cheers when I say thanks to people now. Before it's getting there.
Amazing.
I'll keep it.
Well, today I figured I'd introduce the podcast because we're going to talk all about relationships and building great relationships. And probably my biggest weakness in life is actually sometimes like kindness, and sometimes that they laugh because they know that it can sometimes be true. But these two are amazing with people, relationships, and I absolutely understand the importance of it, but I wanted to literally turn the page a little or turn the script. What is it?
Flip the script.
Flip the script. Yeah. That.
The script. There
I wanted to flip it and talk to you guys a little bit and give kind of 5 things that you feel are important to build great relationships. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to get right into it because, we're not about wasting time around here. So relationships are unbelievably important. They're everything in business, in life. But sometimes the busyness in my life can like overtake the building of the relationships because I'm too busy sometimes for people, right? And that's not how it was obviously intended to be at all. But some people are better than others at like building great ones, even when you're busy, which I think you guys are great at.
Oh, thanks.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate that.
I do.
So the first thing that I definitely want to talk about was like relationships. I think it's like a skill.
It is.
But people are either people oriented or task oriented naturally. And the other one, whichever one you're not, it's going to be a skill that you need to develop. So I'm a relationship oriented person. So sometimes I have to focus. It's harder for me to like be task oriented. And I've had to really put a lot of time and effort into learning how to do that. And some people are the opposite. Like you're such a task master. Whereas for you need to.
In other words, I'm a terrible relationship message. No, I get it.
That's not true. That's totally not true. But anyways, I do think that relationships it's a skill that's totally worth building and putting some time into because like you said, they're so important.
And I think the skill is an important aspect because skill requires effort.
Yes, it does.
And that's what I think I realize. Like it takes effort to be nice and to actually get to know people. Like it does. Like just a basketball player doesn't just become better. They put effort into being better at their skill.
Yes.
And that's a great way to put it. Skill. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But it makes for good teams though. Because
Absolutely.
like if you have one person who is, like you said, one's task oriented, the other one is like people oriented, let's say, then put those two people together,
right?
And they help each other in their weaknesses.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then they're also showing each other strength in where they, so it makes for great teams, great organizations when you have those two people. Because
Absolutely.
if you have somebody that's nice all the time but doesn't get anything done,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we were just listening to a podcast, a great podcast called Lead to Win. Link is in the description. Great leadership podcast. But they just were talking about like productivity by Enneagram number.
Yes.
And talking about how that is a big, huge thing is the people that are like the people person. They want to talk with every cubicle and be like, well, at the end of the day too, there's a balance. Like you can't just keep talking all day. You have to eventually work. Right. So it is that balance. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The effort that goes into it is still effort that's being taken away from something else. So
Absolutely.
I think that's why people naturally lean to like, okay, well, I just got to get it done. I don't have time to talk, but that's not good either.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
It is tricky. It's definitely finding that like harmony between the two. I always feel like balance is so hard because as women, I feel like we really strive for this like perfect balance. But I've switched in my mind the word harmony. So like sometimes in my life, like in order for me to have harmony, I have to focus on one thing a little bit more. So it's like this like teeter-totter.
It's very like situation scenario based kind of thing.
For sure.
Because I found that to be true for me. Because like for me, I just love people at all times, no matter what it is. But I've actually found that to be very valuable, like you were saying, in business in general.
Yes.
Because like without a relationship,
Oh yeah,
they're not coming back.
Right.
So it's important to have the relationship side of it. But then for me, that's why Scott and I work so well together, because like I love the idea of being organized and having things perfectly done, but it's just not my nature to do that. But I like the idea of it, and I've always wanted. Another reason why I love my wife so much, because she's so task oriented.
Yes.
You know, and things have to be clean and all this stuff, and I always love the idea of that. but I'm too busy talking to people, you know?
Right.
So it's a nice balance to find that, I think.
Yeah. So you have to have the effort, like you said, to put in the skill, but it's going to take time. It's going to take energy. And it's going to be, the second thing I have is just being intentional about that. So whether the intentionality is with time or effort or whatever it is, like, I just think it's so important to be intentional with your relationships. Like, what does that mean to you when you think of being intentional in a relationship?
I think it's putting value in the other person, and like not just so like obviously when you're task oriented, you're putting a lot of your value in and like effort, I'd say, in what you have to get done. But when you're putting your value in what the other person may find valuable or whatever that may be or anything like that, I think that's where and that shows, like when you look at someone's schedule or you look at someone's bank statement, like wherever they put their value in, you can see it in those things.
Yes.
And so sometimes taking that extra minute with a person to really understand like who they are, what their name is, where they're from, what their family's about, like all these things, I found that to really actually come full circle and bring business and bring value back to you. So not actually just for the value of money, but just because building relationships in so many ways has like valued me and it's helped me from a business perspective. But being intentional about it really depends, because it's funny. It's like it depends on who you are. Because if you're the person that can naturally just do that, then it's easy. You almost have to be intentional about the opposite thing that you're not good at. Not to and like I like what Gary Vee says, not to focus too much on your weaknesses. You know what I mean? Focus on your strengths, but also just realize that weaknesses are there, and being like aware that there are some things that you can work on. And I think being intentional on some of those weaknesses every once in a while is okay. Yeah. So that you can actually, be more balanced, like you were saying.
Yeah. What about you? Like, what does that look like?
I think that it's kind of like a taskmaster puts tasks into an intentionality into the task.
Yes.
As a people person, it's almost just that your task is the people first.
Right.
So it's, the brains operate the same way. It's just your tasks look different. So if it takes time in relationships, the taskmaster is not necessarily putting a task on their calendar to go have coffee with someone or build a relationship. The other person might be. Like, and I definitely think that's. I used to have someone that I worked for used to literally put like time on his calendar to like have coffee with someone, but it wouldn't even say a person's name.
Yep.
It would be like putting it into their calendar to do something with someone, just to force them to actually make a phone call to say, are you available for it? Because it's already on the calendar. Yep. I think that's the problem I found, is like it's hard to try to just fit this into your lifestyle if you're not intentional behind it needs to be done.
Yes.
Because we all find time for anything we want to do.
Absolutely.
Every single time. Anyone will find time to do what they want to do. But if naturally that's not the side that you lean to,
right,
it's even more effort to go through it. And it is important. What about you?
Well,
or let's ask you, how do you be intentional?
How do I be intentional?
Yeah, you can answer the first part first, but what does intentional look like in the way that you even think about scheduling your time?
Yeah. So for me, because of the amount of things that are on my plate as just, a single mother doing multiple different things, I actually, even though
being a seven,
I do actually have to also plan things sometimes. And so for me, I think about people a lot. Like somebody will just come to mind, or like heart or whatever. And now I actually am intentional about if someone is on my heart or on my mind, I either text them or somehow tell them immediately.
Yeah, right.
Because otherwise it's like a fleeting, like things just go in and out of my head so much. So I try to be more intentional about like, hey, how are you? You were just on my mind. And I literally just tell people. And that always means a lot, I think, to people, because they're like, oh, that's so nice. And we all do it, but we just kind of move on to the next thing really quickly. But so I've tried to be more intentional about, if I think about somebody, I either reach out to them right away, or I write down in my note, because I like to write handwritten notes. I think I have pretty handwriting. And so I think people like getting like a card or a note in the mail, because people don't get that very often. So those are kind of some of the ways that I like to be intentional. And at the beginning of every month, I also really think about, or I personally pray about the people that God like wants me to spend some time with. And I reach out to them and make sure I really try to connect with them sometime within that month.
It's super important because even from like, if you're like a business owner or whatever, let's say you're in business or you work, like you always have those relationships with people that you like come across and they're always like, oh, we gotta get together. You know, we gotta get the kids together. We gotta, you know, and like actually a week later reaching out and being like, so when did we want to do this?
I started to try to put even more pressure on people, and I literally get my phone. I'm like, what day works? Like, and they're like, whoa, I didn't really mean it. Like, I just use that term. The amount of people that say that, the amount of people that always say that kind of stuff. Hey, let's grab coffee, and I want to also be like, dude, I've been trying to grab coffee with you for years. Like, so if we don't actually do it right now, if I don't force you to put it on your calendar and see that you put it on, it just doesn't happen.
Right. But a lot of people are scared to like in the moment be like, actually mean that, you know? And so being that person that actually, you know, is trying to do that.
But I think that importance too of doing it right away, like I heard somewhere, it might have been on that podcast we were talking about, that anything that can be done in under 2 minutes should never go on a task list.
So good.
You should just do it.
Wow.
Because
interesting.
Why make a task about it? Like, just do it. It takes you longer to make the task and rethink about it than it does to just do it.
Exactly.
But my pushback that's always difficult about that is like in a creative industry, a 90-second distraction can be a 20-minute distraction to get back into the mindset of editing.
Right.
And Pablo can completely understand this aspect of like when you're in something that is creative, and sometimes you start an edit and you might be editing for an hour and you're like, nothing's flowing, and then something hits and you're like, oh, here we go, I'm just dialing it in. Every time you get out of that, you have to get back into it.
Right, and it takes 5 times longer.
And what is, but maybe define like what does getting out of it mean? Literally a text message.
Yeah,
like
and that's what. And I've had tons of this conversation and stuff with Pablo too, because Pablo naturally likes, he's randomly, and people in general, always are texting and doing stuff during the day. I'm not concerned with someone taking 15 seconds to text someone or 30 seconds to text someone. I'm concerned because I know the reality of what that looks like when it adds up.
Yes.
Every 30-second distraction, taking 3 minutes of your time or 15 to get back into it.
Right.
Now you're wasting hours a day not realizing it.
Right.
And I think there's tons of field. If you're like a data entry person or whatever, like, and I'm not discrediting what a job role is, but there's certain things that like right when you get back in the task, you're back to work. There's nothing to it.
Yeah.
In a thing where you're creative and you're trying to process things and you have to get into mentality of getting into the client's mentality, getting into the edit, it's not always that simple to just do that. So you're also having to fight the balance of someone comes right in your mind. Right away, you've already lost train of thought. So to a point, you can just knock out the task because you've already taken yourself out of the mindset.
Right.
But also not letting anything distract you. Is tricky.
What about this? Not that you would have, maybe yours would be like, not actually a Post-it note, but like, me and my love of Post-it notes. But if you had something, just text.
Whiteboard desk. Have you seen those? Oh. They're whiteboard desks that you can write right on the desk.
I want one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm distracted. Okay.
It's almost like
so
the
you
people
just
that write on Windows.
You write down their name and what you want to say.
Michaela's would have all these windows.
Let's pretend we never said that.
Yeah. All the video shoots would just have like words on people's face because they would be reflecting through the window.
With like hearts on it.
Yeah. So a Post-it note, right?
Something that
you could just
you don't have
write
to go to
it
technology
down.
to also do.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Write it down and then just like push it away.
Right.
Because then you know to maybe check that afterwards. But yeah, something where it's not technology.
For me, I've been using like the asking Siri to do things because the fact that when you do it voice wise and you don't cue her up, because like if you pick up your phone and put a reminder in, you'll be distracted by something else on the phone. If I just literally say, Siri, remind me in an hour to do, that's what's been helping me because immediately it's on my mind, immediately it becomes a reminder and it's in a task already for me to remember.
Yeah.
But it didn't require me touching a device, picking up a device, seeing what else is on there, which right away, if I see notifications, I'm like, oh, I gotta check them.
Yeah.
So I think that's also helped me as a technology-based person is utilizing things you have, but realizing what's bad for your distraction. And sometimes it's not picking up your phone, unlocking it, and going to a thing. Because badges on a phone, which is also why I'm a huge fan of like not having badges on things or notifications if possible, they distract you more than you think.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
every time you see something, you're thinking you're missing something. And so even something, a simple hack for someone that's super into technology, turn off your lock screen notifications so that you still see badges and you get notifications when it's open, but nothing ever shows up on your lock screen. So when you tap your screen, you see what time it is, or you see a reminder. You don't see 64 text messages.
Yo, I need to do that.
Yeah, and that really will help because that's what you're like, oh, I meant to, and then now you're gone.
Oh, you're gone. Yeah.
You thought it was going to take 30 seconds. Now you're on Instagram doing stories. You forgot that you even went for your phone for it. Right. So when you don't see anything at the very beginning, and everything just always is blank, you see it when you open the phone, so you're not missing anything. But when you're working, you don't open your phone, and you just leave lock screen notifications off. Because there's levels of notifications. We're getting like iOS stuff, but there's like levels of like what's on your lock screen, what has badges, what has sounds, what has constant notifications, what has the reminders that you have to actually make. So there's a reminder that either shows up in a banner on a phone that you can swipe away, or there's an alert that you have to make a decision on before it goes away. So there's levels of that. But that's how, if you're obsessed with technology like me, I don't love the post-it idea because I don't like that kind of writing, but I have to put other systems in place to not be distracted by other things. And
so maybe like actually scheduling, we talked about this too, or maybe scheduling certain parts of the day just to like,
email,
hey, this is email,
social media, follow up.
But like actual like 15, 20 minute blocks that are like for real.
It's way more productive than taking 30 seconds 100 times a day.
Correct.
I agree.
Like,
Yeah. Because it does take you, I mean, like, this is like scientific proof that takes you 5 times longer to, like, when you start something else to get back into what you just left, it takes you 5 times longer to get back on track, to remember where you left off, like all that kind of stuff. So
maybe being intentional is like doing it in the moment, but if you are like working or something, then like scheduling the time to do it.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Eliminating Distractions podcast.
So back to where we were.
Knowing yourself, which was actually
number 3,
number 5, but it kind of goes into this a little bit, but
all right, cool.
Knowing your, actually, maybe I'll do knowing yourself first. So I think that one of the most important relationships that you have is the one that you have with yourself. This is kind of like one of my life's mission, is to talk to people about this, because like the level that you can only love people to the level that you love yourself. And I think you can only know people to the level that you know yourself. So and I read this in a book called Relationships, a Mess Worth Making. He says the fatal flaw of human wisdom is that it promises that you can change your relationships without needing to change yourself. Like, I think a lot of things start with you and your relationship. Your relationship with yourself. So if you're dealing with things internally, you're going to deal with things in your relationship. It's like a mirror. So it's important to take time to get to know yourself and to get to know some of the things that you might need to deal with, which is why I love like the personality tests and all that kind of thing, because
it's fun.
I like to know myself and be aware of myself so that I can be aware of my friends.
Reality is, though, a lot of people are not that way.
Correct.
They're actually like afraid of.
Right. And I was for a really long time, which affected a lot of my relationships. And it wasn't really until, honestly, like therapy and really getting to know a lot of things and deal with my issues like head on. And once I was able to do that, it's forever a learning game. I think.
And it's sometimes not issues, it's tendencies. Like
totally
learning your tendencies. And that's why I do like the Enneagram stuff, is like it alerts you on certain things that you're kind of like, that makes a lot of sense as I read that.
Oh yeah, I do.
Like I didn't realize I do that every single time I go into stress, every single time.
Right.
And then when people also around you know your tendencies, it helps them to deal with you to a point. Easier. To realize like, it sounds super rude how that person is. That's just literally how that personality type responds. That is not how it's coming at you. Because you're going to look at it at how I would never say that. Well, you're not me.
Correct.
And I mean exactly what you mean when you say it nicely. I just come at it differently because my personality type is so different. And that's why those things I do love. But knowing yourself that's something I've really had to process. And that's why I think it's also crazy when people are like, don't bring your work stress home, and don't bring your stress. Like, that's not possible.
Right.
Like, if you're not in a good place at home, you're not going to be a good place at work, and vice versa.
Right.
So they have to be, I think, a little bit more intertwined than people think.
Totally agree.
And it doesn't mean bring your work home.
Right.
But it means you can't just expect people to be having the worst personal life ever at home and becoming like, everything's great. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. And the more you push things down like that, there comes a time when it's going to explode everywhere. You might as well just deal with it.
Right.
And I think as a boss, it's like I just had a conversation with someone else at another workplace, and they were talking about how like if you know if you know what someone else's personality type and you know things they're going with, and you have the empathy behind that to realize like, I know that as a taskmaster, I want you to get to work as soon as you work here. But if I know that ultimately you'd be better off taking an hour before you get in and you'd give way better quality, productive time after that, it's silly for me to try the opposite.
Right.
It's silly for me to, if I know someone needs to work on something, to try to like change the system. Like if they're not in a good place when they get here, they won't be effective no matter what, even if I tell them to get to work or not, because they have something else in their mind.
Right.
And then so knowing the relationship type and then knowing yourself to know what you need to do to get better is huge.
Yeah. I think knowing yourself allows people around you to understand your intention. Does that make sense? I'm like processing this as I'm saying it, but as you can see, if you're watching, but the thing I've noticed, somebody asked me recently, they were like, "What's it like to work with Scott? You've been with him for a long time. What's that like?" And I was like,
"Don't tell me the answer."
I was like, "Next question." No. But the honest answer, I was like, "It's not always easy, but it's worth it." And the reason why I said that was because I understand his intention. You know what I mean? Like. It took me a while to understand, but like there's things where it's like we've had hard times, but we've had really great times. You know, I think we started out great as friends first, and we've always been that way. But I understand now why things are said or done in certain ways because I understand the intention behind it. And so I think allowing what I mean, and the reason I'm saying this is because, like I said, I think the reason that you should look at yourself and understand yourself is because then the people around you can understand your intention better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would say majority, not all the time, but majority like of people probably have good intention rather than bad. I mean, some do have bad, but you know what I mean? But in majority
good.
they mean good.
Yeah.
But it's just that they're not allowing themselves to know themselves. You know what I mean? So
I think humans are better people than people give us credit for.
I think so.
Human beings are good people, but all these things are what confuse people to think something else.
Right.
Or when someone's in a certain mood, but the other person has no empathy to why they're even in that mood, and they just trigger them to be even worse. Like, people are actually, I think, good by not by nature, but they're like, I think more people are good than bad.
I think there's a lot of good hurt people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
kind of.
We've all been through things, and sometimes we react to certain things because of what we've been through in certain situations. And I recently was feeling like with someone in business, like she doesn't see me like at all. She doesn't see what I'm going through or value this, that, and the other thing or whatever. Right. And then another friend of mine who knows me very well, she was like, "Yeah, but do you show her?" I'm like, that's probably a good point, because I don't always show people everything because I love for people to leave my space feeling better than when they walked into my space. And so it's hard for me sometimes to talk about what I'm struggling or what I'm dealing with, because sometimes it's hard and heavy and I don't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah, you don't want to bring them down.
I don't want to bring them down because I love to bring people up. Right. And she's like, "Yeah, but friendship or relationships, like you're not going to have that relationship with every person."
No. Right.
You know, but like Pablo, you know things about me that not everybody does, you know, because of the relationship that we have and the friendship that we have. Right. You know, so it's like
not everybody's in side of that, right? But that's the thing is what we actually just recently had. It happened recently. I forget where we were working or whatever, but I was like completely like disrespected by this person that was happened to be not the client at all, but someone that was on the job. Yeah. And I was, no matter what, I try and do this, but I was representing our company. Right. I was on company time. Yeah. So literally, like, I was super disrespected, like whatever. Yeah. And I literally just said, I asked in response, I said, "What's your name?" And he was like, didn't know what to do. Like, he was like, whoa. Like, I brought him back to like, you know, but the reality of it is, like, I thought in my head after the fact, because Jenny, I talked to my wife, Jenny, about it, and she was just like, "Man, I would have been so, you know, this, that, and the other thing." Yeah. And I was just like, I literally was like, I have no idea what that guy has gone through, is going through, any of those things. But and so from on a professional level, this can help so much because you have so much more sympathy for people. You know, because of these things. I don't know what that guy was.
And that's what I think the empathy thing is. I'm realizing is so important. I think so important from a boss perspective more than anything is. I just have to realize that not everyone, A, is my personality type.
Right.
B, they could be in a different personality type based on how their morning went, how their week's going. There's things that they may never tell me as a boss that they'll tell other people.
Right.
And if I don't have some sort of empathy to understand why someone, if you just come in and you're in a really bad mood and all I think to myself is like smile, you're working. Like, it's not like, I have to understand that I don't understand the situation and start to learn and get to know people better, to know like what do I know helps them? Because everyone's driven by different things. Like, and the more that I've started to realize that and try to think about that, like what is so unique to Michaela, so unique to Pablo, ultimately is what makes people like working for people, is them knowing there's more than just the tasks side of it.
Right.
The reality of it is, if you're in business or building a business or whatever, you can only build a business with people.
Yeah.
And clients are also people, in case you didn't realize that.
Hey, it's all about relationships.
It's about relationships. So like whether you're good at that, like if you're not intentionally good at that or whatever, like hire people who are, or whatever, whatever that you need to do. Like, I'm not saying you have to work on yourself, but like surround yourself with people that are better at you and what you need.
And I would say that if you are a boss, if you are the head of the company and that is not a strength of yours, you should work on it a little, because you'll be in big trouble. Yes, you should surround yourself with people that are better at that. True, but like, if you, well, number one, you probably won't build a business in the first place if you don't understand relationships at all.
Right.
But
not long term,
if you are just terrible at that, you're probably not going to have a great success in the company, no matter what, clients or employees.
Right.
And the nice thing about it is, if you do surround yourself with people who are great at that, a lot of times you naturally will rise to the level of the people that you're around.
True.
When I was a gymnast, my coaches used to always put me in practice with at least 1 or 2 levels up, always. And a lot of there were girls that I had to deal with that were like jealous of that, but that was how my coaches knew that I learned better when I was with people who are way better than me, because I rose. Like, that's just how. But a lot of times that is true. Like, if you surround yourself with a great team of people, you'll start to learn from them as well. But the one thing that you can't do is compare or compete too much. Like, it's always really important to celebrate and to collaborate.
Yep.
I think that is a huge piece of relationship. If you're always comparing yourself to everyone else, like, you're always going to lose. You're never going to measure up. Like, you are who you are. You can get better for sure, but try not to compare too much and ask more than you assume. I think we assume a lot of things.
And the first 3 letters in the word assume are what you don't want to be. And that's,
I agree.
They go hand in hand. Assuming never does anything good.
Correct.
And I've definitely been guilty of assuming things and not thinking about the whole thing. I've been, the way that I am, what has been helping me a lot in trying to, with relationships and just in general, is I'm a person that just says what I think, and just because it's easier, it saves me time, whatever.
Yeah.
And I've realized, especially with certain personality types, but in general, I'm finding better value of saying nothing, thinking about it, and then processing it, and not being so just abrupt. Because even if I'm abrupt in a nice way, I'm making decisions too quickly sometimes and not processing them.
Yep.
Like, everything is linked to everything. Like, every little decision affects something else in some way or another. And trying to just hear something, good feedback, bad feedback, change of situation, change of gear, processing it, and thinking about, okay, well, what does that affect on this side of it? What does this affect on something?
Yeah.
And especially with relationships, when you are dealing with that kind of person that is unfriendly or whatever, there's only going to be a certain thing you can say in person, but if it's a work work environment where you know you're going to see that person on a regular basis, and something happens that's entirely disrespectful, just jumping back at them and diving down their throat is not making the situation better.
Nope.
No.
And it's hard because you want to, but if you know you're going to see people all the time in a workplace, just being like, wow, that was really not super friendly. Yeah. But processing it, what are they going through right now? Yep. How can I respond? Makes a big difference.
It's important, and it's actually respecting the other person's way of doing it too. Because like even with my wife, that's one big thing that we had to work through and still do is like she's a processor.
Right.
So in the moment something happens, then she has to be like, she's quiet and won't talk. And then I'm like, and I'm the person that's like, we got to fix this now. Yeah. Right now. We'll talk it out, and eventually we'll come out the other end and we'll be fine. Yeah. She's like, no. I need to process and like think about what I'm going to say. You know what I mean? And I'm learning to respect that now, because some people, that's how they have to deal with the things. And so you're the same way, it sounds like, as well.
And it's also why whether it's good or bad, I like, the saying, like with married couples, they say like never go to bed angry. I don't really agree with that to a point. Okay. Because I feel like if you're ready for bed, and you're in an argument, like you need time to sleep on it. Like not just the term sleep on it and think about it. Like most times you wake up, you either forget it, or you realize, what the heck were we fighting about in the first place? It wasn't that important. Yeah. Granted, I know people are kind of saying like, what if something happened in the middle of the night, whatever. And I get it. But I just feel like thinking on something, sometimes a situation needs to be resolved immediately. More times than not, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It just needs a little bit of processing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you go back to, you're like, what a dumb thing that we were talking about. Like, why in the world?
Time can fix things a lot of the time. Yeah.
And I think it's important. You'll learn, and I think as you get, maybe it comes with age, but like that discernment. So I had a situation, like a work environment, where I know that it's a situation that I need to address, but there was something in my spirit that said, not right now. Like, give grace in an area where you're not given grace back, but give it abundantly. Right. And then after like a little while talking to this person, I realized that she was going through something that no matter what, if I would have said it, it wouldn't have been, she couldn't have received it. And that we wouldn't have even been able to work it out in that moment. So like, I don't know, there's something about discernment that I think sometimes you have to trust yourself. If you feel like maybe this isn't the right time, or I need to cool down, or she needs to cool down, or whatever it might be. Right. So just discerning the situation.
Discern your battles a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. And pain and bitterness, like it affects your perspective and your discernment. So sometimes it does. You need to work on it first before you can start talking to the other person about it. But yeah, so relationships are definitely important, and it's a valuable thing. It's a super important thing in business, in life, in the health of a business, in the health of your personal life. Right.
And
but it's also complicated.
And it takes effort. And it takes, you're never going to, you don't master any of this, because every personality type, there's not a secret to relationships that like, if you're this way, it always works, because everyone's different.
Right.
And understanding people and taking notes of that person internally in your head, like, okay, I know to never approach Michaela again with this type, and that's the personality type side of knowing how I love when people come to me and give me instant feedback, and harsh or not, because that's how I prefer it. Yeah. I've realized very much in the last year, nobody else does.
People are like that. Yeah.
Very few. Yeah. So like, it doesn't work for me to go after people how I learn. It doesn't. I need to understand how they learn and process, and that's the only way it works. Yeah. The only way. Yeah. Understanding that just people are different. We're different people.
Yeah. And we've all been through things. Like, you just never know.
Yeah, we're all going through stuff. Yeah.
Walked through.
And they're not going to always tell you.
Correct.
Like, when they come in a bad mood, don't just, the person's always in a bad mood. Well, maybe no one's let them open up to a struggle in life. And all it takes is one conversation for them to feel appreciated, wanted, whatever it is, that can change everything to their men. But it takes effort.
It takes effort. One thing that's really helped me, and I guess I'm just built this way, is like I literally almost see every single situation from the other person's shoes, just about every single time. And it's like I don't know how to turn that off, but I think it's just part of me. And I think that really, if you can try your best, maybe some people aren't naturally that way, which is fine, but just trying your best that every situation, professionally, personally, whatever it is, just to try give it almost like a 2-minute, like, why would they say that? Why would they act that way? And just really trying to see it from their shoes, because a lot of the time, sometimes and there's things that you are naturally never going to know.
Yep.
Maybe ever. But at least trying to see if it's helped me in relationships.
And that's just empathy. That's what empathy is.
I guess it is. Yes.
That's empathy is seeing it from someone else's perspective.
Yeah.
And realizing it's not like, and that's where I think a lot of people struggle, myself included. People always see it from their perspective.
We just all need a therapist.
We do. And hopefully this was a therapeutic episode for you here on the Scale and Creative podcast. But no, there's some really, really good stuff. We would love to know, like, if you're someone that is really good with relationships, or maybe someone that's terrible, comment below. What are some things that have helped you? Because I think these are all 3 different relationship types that are very different. And we all are good with relationships, but struggle in different areas. Like,
of course,
you guys are better than me, but like there's ways that we all are always trying to learn. And that's, I think, what makes you guys great, and this company great, is we like learning. I think we're obsessed with figuring out how to get better. And I think that if you're like that, you can do big things. So thanks for watching. Comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us where you're listening to this. Are you mowing the lawn if you're in Southern California? Are you shoveling snow if you're in upstate New York right now? Are you somewhere around the world that we have no clue about? So we love knowing. Like, the internet's this amazing place where people are watching this all over, listening to this. And I like knowing what you're doing.
Yeah,
like,
cool.
So fun.
Tell us where you're watching, what you're currently doing, and if you listened this far, you're even more unique, because not everyone listens to the entire thing. So you are awesome. Thanks for watching.